Is everything okay in there?
Yeah, I'm almost done getting ready for my interview. Thank you for taking some time out of your morning to join us, Mr. Zuckerberg? Yes, that's right.
Developers, 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 developers. Developers, 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 developers. Yes!
Hello world, and welcome to Programming, with me, the Bananagrammer. Please open your minds and mark your existing knowledge for garbage collection. Today we'll cover my most requested topic, how 10 work from home. It's a situation that a lot of grammars find themselves in ever since the Wuhan clan hackers released their coronavirus, leaving the rest of us to figure out how to function deterministically. Today we'll go from local worker to human API. But first, go to sponsor. This episode is sponsored by LeftPad. It's the package that set the NPM community aflame, and it can do the same to your projects. LeftPad is more than it seems, not just a simple tool for padding your strings. It introduces a sense of danger into your projects. In fact, sometimes I still refer to it by its pre-release codename, Sleeper Cell. Will it succeed in taking your app down? A lot of people ask me what libraries I like to include in my projects. The answer is all of them, including and especially LeftPad, because you never know what you might need, like strings that need to be padded exclusively on the left. It's called dry principle because it leaves your code highly flammable. There's no point in repeating somebody else's work, especially if some amateur can do it. It's not worth my time or yours, so thank you to the amateur who wrote LeftPad. I use it in all of my code, especially if it's mission critical. npm install and pray. LeftPad. Burn it down. Burn it all down. The goal of all remote work is to do as little as possible while appearing highly productive. This is known as passing the Turing test and was named for a programmer named Alan Turing. Turing was the world's first remote developer and was so named because he was always touring the globe, though he did most of his work from England, where localization was the easiest. In order to satisfy his Silicon Valley-based CEO, Turing invented the Turing test, wherein an employer asks for status updates on Slack and must determine whether the responder is actually working or utilizing a bot. Now, let's talk about some ways to pass the Turing test. One thing you can do is to compress a week's worth of work into a single day. Stash a bunch of changes in Git, and then every day commit and PR one of them. A favorite strategy of mine is to start with an implemented feature and progressively stash bugs on top of it. Now you've stretched a small task across an entire week. And since bugs are inherently unscopable, nobody will be the wiser. Especially if you've been doing the smart thing and sandbagging your work up until now. Does that still sound like too much effort? Well, there's no better time to outsource it. When all work is remote, it doesn't matter who does it, just who gets the credit. Because there's no office to come into and leave, the only way to tell someone's working hours is based on their first and last communication of the day. Queue up a bunch of emails and schedule them to be sent over the course of 24 hours. That way, it looks like you're always working. If that seems unreasonable, then at least make sure to cover your core hours. You'll want good excuses for being AFK. These excuses need to actually impede your ability to work. I have lung cancer. Sorry, I have finger cancer. Ow. The best excuses are recurring, so you can keep using them without suspicion. Remember that specificity helps. It's not your computer that keeps breaking, it's your keyboard, then your router, then your motherboard, then your case LEDs, and so on. No matter what, your internet connection is always spotty. Your ISP keeps investigating, but they can't seem to figure out what the problem is. Your employer really needs to bump you up to gigabit. And if they fall for that, your connection is still spotty, and now you need 5G. If they fall for that, well, you've contracted coronavirus. Thanks, 5G. This is the perfect time to upgrade your rig and expense it. And if you can't expense it, then it's a tax deduction like everything else in your house. Borrow or rent somebody's kids for an easy way to get out of meetings. A lot of people think you have more freedom when it comes to clothing when you work from home. It's smarter to think of it as the opposite. Stick to solid colors only, and you never have to change clothes or do laundry. Everyone knows that pants become optional, but invest in some green body paint and so do shirts. And of course, you can still go pantsless. FUBAR! Nothing beats pretending to work while also pretending to not be naked. Invest in a green screen, and using similar technology, you can appear to work from anywhere. Change your background to somewhere nice, like the beach. Tell everyone in your meetings that it's a green screen and it's fake. Now you can actually go to the beach and work from there, and nobody will suspect a thing. So what should you do with all of this free time now that you're neither commuting nor working? That's entirely up to you. You're the one getting paid for it. It is important to do what you love. In my case, I started a YouTube channel rather than working. Whatever you do, make sure you log out of VPN first. It's not all fun and games though. Take an hour out of playing video games to apply for jobs. Now that everything's remote, and if you followed my advice, you don't actually have to do much work, the sky's the limit on how many paychecks you can collect. The assumption is that you're not working. The proof that you're working is that you typed something in Slack. For today's exercise, we're going to write a bot that auto-responds when it hears your name. Okay, let's write our Slack bot. We're going to write this in Node because Slack provides a halfway decent library for doing so. So first, let's create a directory with the name of our bot. We'll call it Remote Pro. Do an npm init and go through that whole ordeal. Let's give it a description that's fun. I like to add puns to mine because people like puns. I don't like to use index.js unless it's a web app, and so we'll go with app.js, give it some keywords for discoverability, let everyone know that this was written by someone who knows what they're doing. And for license, I like to use MIT because it sounds smart. We're going to open up Vim and get started. We're going to need to create that app.js file because NPM is stupid and doesn't do it for us. I want to let everyone know that while I'm going at my normal speed, you probably won't be able to keep up. And that's okay. Pause, rewind, watch at a reduced speed, whatever it takes. Keep watching my channel, and eventually you will be able to keep up. Almost. Not quite. Never as fast as me. All of the code can be found on GitHub, obviously. If you have any trouble understanding any of it, maybe go watch some beginner channels and then come back to mine. So let's get started writing the code. We're going to need some standard replies. The best replies are ones that discourage further inquiry, and the absolute best are the ones that make the sender feel guilty for having sent a request in the first place. If the sender feels guilty, then they're less inclined to send further messages, and the fewer requests that we get, the fewer replies we have to give, and the lower the chance that we're discovered what we're doing here, which is not doing anything, right? And so what this app does is listens for our name, either typed or a mention of our name, and then replies to that message if it hears it. The code is pretty straightforward and shouldn't require that much explanation. Anything confusing is probably because we're writing this in ECMA and it's a dumb language. For those of you who are unaware, ECMA is the name of the language that Node runs on. And here's a little history for you. The name Node comes from the fact that any reasonable request for the framework and any framework features instantly get Node. They won't do it, mostly because the language is dumb. That's why the sequel is named dno, because they're trying to deno all of those requests. Good luck with that. So what we're doing here is listening for messages that weren't sent by us but include our name, and for those we're going to reply to those. We're going to write our core run function and then run it. Okay. And as we finish up here, we're going to need to test our app out. I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty of running it behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and open up Chrome and navigate to Slack and test this thing out. Let's go to our instance of Slack, our programming instance, mostly a test instance at this point. Maybe we'll use it for communications for the channel. Type in a test request. This one is not going to have our name in it, and so our app needs to ignore that. And then let's follow that up with one that does have our name in it, and we should see a reply come through on this one. This one is just our name. It's not a mention. It should work for either. We don't really need to test both. This is just a quick proof of concept. Here's our reply, came through. Hey, I'm still fixing the bugs you caused from last time. That's a good reply. It causes some guilt. Should prevent any further requests going into the future. That does it for now. Remember that YouTube has an API, so write a script that subscribes to my channel and auto-likes all of my videos. And I'll leave you with one parting thought. Working from home is just unemployment with a paycheck. Until next time, kill -9.